You enter a conversation with ease, your mind teeming with connections. Perhaps you quote a philosopher or challenge an assumption. You do so not to dominate, but because your curiosity is alive. Yet you notice the atmosphere shift. People laugh nervously or roll their eyes. They call you a nerd in jest. In certain circles, your intelligence is celebrated, but in others, it seems to unsettle. At times, you tone yourself down, afraid of being labeled pretentious. At other times, you speak freely and feel a subtle isolation follow. You sense that your intellect, which you view as a natural extension of yourself, triggers reactions beyond your control. There is an undercurrent of fear in how society perceives intelligent men. It is not always overt hostility. Sometimes it is avoidance, sometimes belittling, sometimes suspicion. The pattern is elusive yet persistent. The mysterious question that forms is why your ability to think deeply, to reason, to articulate, elicits discomfort in others. You wonder whether the fear says more about you or about the structures around you. From childhood, intelligence was both rewarded and punished. Teachers praised you for correct answers, but scolded you for speaking out of turn. Peers sought your help with homework, but teased you for being a know-it-all. You learned to navigate dual identities, the boy who loved to learn and the boy who hid that love to fit in. Society promotes intelligence in theory, yet in practice, it values conformity and accessibility. You grew in an environment that both elevated and resented intellectual curiosity. In adolescence, you discovered that being smart did not necessarily translate into social ease. You witnessed charismatic peers with average grades become leaders while you edited their essays in the background. The world seemed to send mixed messages. Be intelligent, but not too intelligent. Be informed, but not intimidating. Be aware, but never too aware of your awareness. Historically, intelligent men have been revered and reviled. Socrates was executed for corrupting the youth, while Newton was celebrated yet feared for unearthing the workings of the universe. The archetype of the mad scientist haunts fiction, a brilliant man whose ideas threaten the status quo. Intelligence is associated with power, and power is always watched. When a man displays intelligence, he is perceived as capable of seeing through facades, dismantling narratives, questioning authority. This capacity can threaten those invested in maintaining existing structures. It is easier to manage a populace that does not question. A mind that probes can disrupt the comfortable sleep of complacency. Society, therefore, may fear what it cannot easily contain. This fear manifests in subtle ways. At work, you might be passed over for promotions because your analytical nature is seen as aloofness. In social gatherings, you might be excluded from conversations deemed too light for you, the assumption being that you cannot enjoy frivolity. Romantic prospects may hesitate, fearing comparison or intellectual judgment. The stereotype of the intelligent man is that he lacks emotional intelligence, that he is too cerebral to feel. Ironically, your intellectual sensitivity may make you deeply aware of the feelings around you, but the stereotype persists. To counter it, you may overcompensate, cracking jokes, dumbing down your vocabulary, withholding opinions. This performance drains you. It splits you from yourself. There is also a gendered aspect. Intelligent women face their own distinct challenges, dismissal, misogynistic backlash. But the fear of intelligent men has its own texture. Men are expected to wield their intellects in the service of others, to lead teams, provide solutions, innovate for profit. When a man directs his intelligence toward critique, of systems, of norms. He becomes unpredictable. He is not monetizing his brilliance but turning it inward, asking whether the frame of the picture is crooked. He risks being called unproductive, rebellious, eccentric. The fear is not of intelligence per se, but of intelligence that disrupts. You might notice that the discomfort your intelligence evokes often depends on context. In academic circles, debate is expected. In everyday life, people seek ease. They want to relax after work, not dissect the philosophical underpinnings of a television show. This is understandable. Not every moment requires analysis. The issue arises when society demands that you permanently silence your curiosity to make others comfortable. When your intelligence becomes a problem simply by existing, something is off. You are then faced with a choice: shrink or be yourself. Neither is easy. The anxiety around intelligent men can also stem from self-reflection. Your presence may remind others of their own unfulfilled potential or insecurities. They might project feelings of inadequacy onto you, assuming you judge them. You may not judge them at all, yet the projection sticks. In turn, you might begin to dim your light to reduce their discomfort. But your light is part of who you are. Dimming it is painful. It can lead to resentment and isolation. It can erode your sense of self-worth because you start to believe that your mind is a problem. There is a shadow side to intelligence too. Brilliant men have been arrogant, cruel, disconnected. Intellectual gifts can be used to manipulate. The stereotype of the cold, calculating genius exists because it sometimes reflects reality. Society's fear partly arises from this shadow. Intelligence without compassion is dangerous. Intellect without humility harms. The antidote is not to fear intelligence, but to cultivate it alongside empathy. If you are aware of this, you can consciously integrate heart and mind. Your intellect can become a source of insight rather than alienation. You can demonstrate that intelligence is not antithetical to warmth. You can be the person who reads philosophy and also listens deeply to a friend. In doing so, you challenge the stereotype from within. You might wonder how to navigate spaces where your intelligence causes friction. First, recognize that you do not owe anyone a performance. You do not need to hide your curiosity or dilute your thoughts. At the same time, discernment matters. Not every environment can hold every conversation. Sometimes, the most compassionate act is to laugh at a silly joke without offering a critique. Other times, the courageous act is to speak up when you see flawed reasoning harming others. Wisdom lies in knowing when to speak and when to remain silent, when to engage intellectually and when to engage emotionally. This is not about suppressing your intelligence, but about channeling it appropriately. You can also seek out people and communities who celebrate your mind. You might join discussion groups, classes, or forums where deep thinking is encouraged. Surrounding yourself with fellow curious minds can alleviate the feeling of being alien. It can also teach you how to communicate complex ideas in accessible ways. After all, intelligence is not just about knowing. It is about conveying understanding. When you practice expressing your thoughts without assuming prior knowledge, you build bridges rather than walls. This makes your intelligence less threatening because it invites rather than excludes. In personal relationships, let your intellect be paired with vulnerability. Share not just your conclusions, but also your doubts. Ask questions not just to challenge but to learn. Admit when you do not know something. This humility disarms fear. It shows that your intelligence is not a weapon but a tool you are willing to use for connection. If someone feels threatened, invite them into your thought process. Explain why you love exploring ideas. Share how your mind works. Let them see the human behind the intellect. If they still resist, it might be a sign that your connection is limited not by your intelligence, but by their capacity to engage. Societally, you might use your mind to advocate for change that benefits more than yourself. Intelligent men who challenge unjust systems, who use their insight to uplift marginalized voices, who design solutions for collective problems, model a form of intelligence that is difficult to fear. They show that brilliance can be generous. They disrupt the narrative that smart men are detached. When your intellect is in service to something larger, society's fear transforms into respect. Ultimately, the fear of intelligent men says more about societal discomfort with uncertainty and change than about individual men. Intelligence exposes cracks. It asks why we do things a certain way. It imagines alternatives. For some, this is exhilarating. For others, it is destabilizing. You cannot control others' reactions, but you can control your alignment with yourself. When you honor your intellect and your heart, you radiate a wholeness that neither flaunts nor hides. Those who are ready will meet you there. Those who are not may keep their distance. This distance is not a judgment, it's a boundary. As you move through the world, notice how often you censor yourself in anticipation of how you will be perceived. Ask yourself whether the cost of that censorship is worth the comfort you provide others. Sometimes it will be. Sometimes it will not. When you let go of the need to be palatable, you free your mind to roam. And when your mind roams, it finds beauty in questions and patterns that enrich your life. Fear arises in the face of the unknown. If you become intimately known to yourself and share yourself honestly, the shadows recede. Your intelligence stops being a specter and becomes a beacon, for you first, and then perhaps for others.